What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Play the Fight Song podcast. We are excited to be here tonight. We have another action-packed show for you. We're going to talk college football. That's what we do. This is the college football place to be. I'm joined alongside JP and Jake. Reese is MIA. Just kidding. We know where he's at, but we do miss him. He will be back in the studio next week, hopefully, and we're going to have a good show without him. But let's talk to the boys first. Let's go to Jake. How are we doing tonight? Are we ready to talk a little bit of college football what-ifs?
Yeah, I'm always ready to talk college football, even if it's March and ready for March Madness. Appreciate everybody joining in. It looks like we got a decent viewership. Is this the highest live we've gotten so far?
It's up there.
There's
good people in there. There's good people in here. College football interest. We had a very good showing in our college football 25 talks and video up on YouTube. So shout out to those people. If you're just tuning in to the Play the Fight Song show for the first time ever, you're in the good spot. JP, how we doing? You ready to talk some what ifs?
Absolutely. And if you haven't checked out our thoughts on our initial thoughts that we've talked about on this podcast about the new game coming out, check out the YouTube. It's done. The video has done well. So drop a like, subscribe over there. But it is absolutely awesome to have the ability to talk about college football in a video game sense and then get news. And then on the back end, this just shows what our brain does on a random February, March day. Jacob goes, we should do what ifs, what if that it just started going through, you gotta chill, wait for the show a little bit here. But pumped to be here. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's green beer season. Season. It's green beer season.
Food coloring. I was gonna say I send those texts out because anytime I put it into thought, I actually have it in our physical group chat, and I won't have to forget about it. If I just leave it in my head, I have ADHD, so I know I'm gonna forget about it.
I got a notes app, Jacob, that I've been putting mine in. You got a computer in your pocket, so you could use
15 seconds, app. Man. 15 seconds. If it doesn't get out of my head in 15 seconds, I might lose it. So
you're telling me that the time it takes you to think of a thought, reach into your pocket, unlock the phone, type in the notes app, and type is just too long. Though. That's
100%. You ever pulled up? Your
need
phone,
to be a note
on Twitter. Then you're on Instagram.
Notepad guy. One of those guys that always has a notepad on him.
Pocket shirt, slide the notebook right in there, just like my grandfather did. Shout out. You just need to pull it out. I mean, you sound like 10-second Tom. Put together a thought one time, remember it.
As I'm saying.
It must not be very
If you
good
can name that movie, Jacob, we will no longer call you 10-second Tom.
No, I'm not even going to say something stupid.
He's going to say something stupid.
You know the movie. You know the movie.
No,
you know the movie. Adam Sandler. Does that help you?
Nope, not even
50 First Dates.
It's 50 First Dates. Come on, man.
Never seen it.
You got to grow up a little bit.
What?
All right.
You've never seen 50 First Dates?
Let's roll into college football. Okay. Let's go to recent news. A lot of recent news, shockingly. We were a little bare when we were making the plan for this week. All of a sudden, all this news rolls in. We also are going to talk on the 14-team college football playoff a little bit. A lot of discussions there, but we're going to open up recent news with Jordan McLeod. The reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year is transferring to Texas State. He's a stud, man. He threw for over 3,600 yards last year, 35 scores. Does this feel like almost a little bit of a lateral move here, though? Could he have ended up somewhere better? Jake, what do you think?
Well, I think I said when TJ Finley originally was there, I think this is a good spot for anybody who wants to throw the ball through the air. I think that they're going to put them in the position where at Texas State, you're going to throw 40 to 50 times a game. And for McLeod, I'm assuming, coach leaves at JMU. Wasn't he originally, I get so confused or I forget things. Wasn't he originally committed somewhere else in the portal window this year to another G5 before he committed to Texas State?
I feel like there was major talk on it. I cannot remember if he fully committed though. But it doesn't
believe. Maybe. I mean, I thought I saw on the graphic, there's usually those both teams or whatever they were listed to originally on those on 3 graphics. It's got like the team they were committed and then now where they end up. I just can't put the logo to it right now, but I think you might be right.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it back up here for everybody else. But yeah, I think this is a good spot for him. I think Texas State, do they surpass JMU kind of in the Sun Belt? Is this a team that's kind of on the rise? Got to their first, I believe it was their first bowl game last year. They beat Baylor in the first game of the year. I like what their coach is doing there. And I think, this was a 3-star transfer hire, almost fringe 4-star guy. He was a top 100 guy for a while. So yeah, I think this is a great get to replace TJ Finley, who moved over to Western Kentucky. Let's not forget that.
Yep.
That's just
And
I don't get that one still, if I'm being honest.
you also have to mention shout out to the coaching staff over at Texas State. Whatever they're doing it right. They get Auburn transfer TJ Finley in there. Then they, if you remember, they get Jaden Delora for a couple of weeks. He catches a sexual assault charge. They dismiss him, and now they get another stud quarterback in Jordan McLeod. So they must be doing something right. Whether I don't know if it's all above board. We're not going to speak to it because we don't know. But getting that much talent at a school like that is quite impressive. JP, what do you think on this?
Well, I kind of want to talk. Let's start with Jordan McLeod, and then we'll talk a little about GJ McKinney and what he's doing at Texas State. But Jordan McLeod, right? Like the guy was at UCF, Arizona, James Madison, correct? This will be his fourth school. USF, sorry. He seems to be a guy that everybody likes to have in the locker room and around. You haven't heard anything come out about him transferring 4 times. Usually when a guy transfers 3 or 4 times, you start to wonder, like, is it a head thing? Is it a locker room thing? Like, what is it? Like JT Daniels had a billion questions about him, right?
Yep.
This is a weird one to me because I can't remember if he hit the portal before Cignetti took the Indiana job or if Cignetti took that job and then he left. Because if he did leave, because I'm sure he got like some thoughts that
he hit the portal. He hit the portal and played in that bowl game. I remember against Air Force.
But his initial announcement, I'm saying, do you think that was Cignetti?
Yeah, it was after Cignetti left.
Okay, so then this one, again, this is one of those situations where it's a pass. Like if a guy leaves, his head coach leaves where he's loved it, like you can't blame him. But then he's going to a guy in GJ Kinney who's been unreal as a Texas State head coach. Like he's gone into this fertile recruiting ground just to stay at Texas. Being and San Marcos can't be the easiest thing on earth. Like this isn't the most beautiful area of Texas, but what it is a athletic department putting money into things, right? And he's got connections in Texas. A lot like what McGuire's doing at Texas Tech, right? But at a smaller scale. And so I think he's a player's coach. I think he's a guy people want to be around.
We almost lost Jordan there.
Yeah, Mike's cutting out. It's bad mic night for JP, but he's rolling right now. We'll let him get it reconnected.
I was going to say, to put a bow on that, I agree. Like Texas State, this was one of the lower end jobs, I think, in college football when they turned FBS in, 2013. So the job that he's doing with this school.
The biggest heartbreak of all this is Jake's no longer going to be able to rebuild Texas State in the new NCAA game because they're going to be pretty good in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be the worst part of it.
We're moving on to other people. We picked our teams last week.
And I did actually have a buddy that came in and said he wants to rebuild Texas State. I agree, JP. I don't know if it's a rebuild anymore. You have
I feel like we're getting
at least 4-star talented quarterback when it comes to the transfer portal. I think he was misranked. I mean, he's a stud.
I agree.
Okay, let's go to the next piece of news. Let's go to Kevin Johns, the former Duke offensive coordinator, fiery coach, well-known, goes over to Oklahoma as an offensive analyst. That is his title. First couple of comments reading through some fans' initial reactions to this was Broklahoma. They can't afford somebody much better, but I like Kevin Johns. He's a young, fiery coach. It was a shocking move. Former Big 12 team in Oklahoma. We'll go to Jake on this. What'd you take on it?
Yeah,
I'm not going to go to me first. I was the one that should have had him. He shouldn't have had this job.
I'll move it to you, JP. I don't think the slander's appropriate. I kind of
like
this
either. I think it's Oklahoma fans being Oklahoma fans. What are you complaining about if you're Oklahoma? Like, why is this the hire you don't like?
Yep.
I mean,
this really again how much?
Oh, try to think. What year was that? I mean, I always bring this back up when they booed Spencer Rattler off the field, and then a week later when Caleb was struggling, they booed Caleb off the field back for Spencer. It was incredible.
That was 21, I believe, right?
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah,
it's like, what?
21.
You guys can't have it all. Like, you can't boo both quarterbacks in the same season. And
I think just with what he's done with Riley Leonard at the quarterback position, I think could give Jackson Arnold a head start into SEC play. That's kind of why I like the hire. As an analyst, we always like to say we don't know the ins and outs of all college football staffs. How much control does an analyst have on a staff? How much does he have input in calling plays at Oklahoma? But I think this is the right step for an Oklahoma team that I think is still going to just struggle in the SEC and struggle offensively with the offensive line right now.
See, I'm a little bit. I'm on the opposite side. I'm going to hop on the back of Jake here. I'm on the opposite side. I think it's a sleeper team. I'm a big time believer. I've always said this in Brent Venables. I really like him as a person. Obviously, we saw the defenses he put together in his time at Clemson. I'm high on Brent Venables. Obviously, this is a great hire or add, I should say, to that offensive side of the ball. And things are looking up. I bet you there's a sleeper team, 8-9 wins out of nowhere. This would be that Oklahoma team, as long as they avoid the hangover game. JP.
Hey, I was going to say
Go ahead,
out of
Jake.
nowhere, 6.5 wins on the win total right now. So 8 or 9 wins for Oklahoma actually would come out of nowhere.
I was just going to say more of the offensive analyst side, what they're doing. Like, again, I'm not in meeting rooms and within the program to tell you exactly what they're doing. Like, none of us played high level college football. We haven't worked in the business, but my assumption is it has a lot more to do with scouting the week in front of you. What's possible on these guys, run percentages, pass percentages, our ability to run left, right, middle, all that stuff. I think it has way more to do with efficiency of the offense than it does like game planning and play calling. I think that's all offensive coordinator. I think this is more setting up that play card for Saturday, having everything ready to go in all situations. I think it's more based around that.
Do you think, I don't want to dive into too much like personal teams here, but JP, do you think they actually,
do you think we could use one? Yeah.
No. Do you think Iowa offered Johns the job?
No.
We know publicly that they had an interview.
So. I don't think so, because the way that it was received from the media would make you think that he wasn't even given a chance. Because remember, if you look at what they talked about Chris, right, without that whole thing, it kind of started to become public knowledge that Chris said no to the job.
Yep.
So it kind of makes me think that he was never offered, because I don't know, just the timing of it all and how it worked out, and like how everybody was covering it for the Des Moines Register to 24/7 to all these other places, right? All those were like kind of astounded by the situation. So I don't think he got offered the job.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, because I'm sure you'll talk about it, JP, when it comes to fan perspective side on our YouTube. If you can go back, change the clock, would you take Kevin Johns or would you take Tim Lester?
I think we need to see. Like, you have to get
it, right? Because, but what would have made you feel better? You look down at your phone. We hired so and so. Which name? Off the top of your head?
I thought Johns was the more proven guy recently.
Okay,
and
that's an honest
scheme. Still
that's
worked.
Where I thought you'd go.
Yeah, I thought his scheme still worked, but at the same time, like, what if this turns out to be a great hire? I'm happy to be wrong if that's the case. So
yeah, but I get the also point of from Iowa fans wanting Johns. Just what Jake said. Look what he did with Riley Leonard, and you want to talk about a school that needs quarterback development? Iowa. So that's a good spot for them. All right,
yeah,
moving to the next.
Nicely.
I'm trying to be nice here. Let's move to the next one. Lance Leipold, 4 years, $40 million extension. Holy cow. Cash the checks, $10 million. Quite the raise for Lance. He's done what he did at Kansas. It's an unmarked territory. They haven't seen this success since Mangino days, back with Todd Reesing at quarterback in 2007. Just watch the rerun of Nebraska, Kansas from 2007. They beat us 73-40. So hopefully those days are coming back, because those days they were a dominant football team, and they really do believe in their head coach now. What do you guys think on this deal, Jake?
I mean, they're putting all the chips in Kansas football, aren't they? Brand new stadium, and people forget. Yeah, his extension was. I mean, it's a good sum. $40 million is a lot, but he actually in his contract
newsflash, $40 million, a lot of money.
He took less money, so it's a bigger pool for his staff. So not only are they investing in a guy who, he's probably. I don't see him coaching more than 10 more years in college football. So he's trying to build something here. I think he's going to stay at Kansas for the long run, and he wants guys on his staff to be with him for the long run. Reminds me a lot of like what Campbell does. Campbell has taken pay cuts at Iowa State to retain John Haycock and other guys, the other good coordinators on his staff, so they stick along with him when they're at their highest point. Brand new stadium. I like what Kansas is doing. Unfortunately, as I say it, I'm not going to say they've surpassed most of the Big 12 teams as of yet. They had 1 9-win year. I kind of want to see more, but I mean, the trajectory of where this is heading it's a good time to extend him. I mean, he was on everybody's list for jobs in December. So for him to stick it out this long, and now he's just getting an extension in March, I think really says something on where he wants to be in Lawrence, Kansas.
I think a lot of it has to do with when you look at everything that's happened and all.
JP, it's just a tough Mike night. He's a little angry, but I'll give my 2 cents while he reconnects. It's a good hire. It's a good extension and a good sum of money for Kansas to invest in. But when you're putting that much money into the program out of nowhere, where you've been a basketball school for X amount of years, still continue to be, now you're just attracting more fans to a different sport. It could grow quickly because they're successful. Jake, you were a hater on them last year. I told you they were going to win 9 games. They did exactly that. Jalen Daniels returns. I expect a lot of offensive production.
Hold on. You said they
here we go.
Games. You said they'd win
no,
6
I didn't.
games.
I have the clip.
You didn't say they'd win 9 games.
I said, and I quote myself, I said, you're going to be shocked when this team rolls out and wins 9 games. I can pull the quote, and we're going to do that just to prove you wrong because I said that. I've been high on Kansas. I like their program, and I like their offense. Jason Bean was a stud. JP, continue.
Oh, my goodness, this damn Mike. But I was just going to say, like, the ability to have him stay through the transition to a new stadium too. Like, I don't think that's all money based, like you were saying, Jacob. Like, just you have to play in Arrowhead and you got to play some other places. I can't remember what the soccer stadium's called in Kansas City. They were Sporting KC plays, but I think they play a home game or there or so. Like, just to keep a guy around through this massive transition, it is tough, especially within the college landscape we're seeing now where the Big Ten and the SEC have taken just about everybody out of the jobs in the other situations. Like Leopold, Whittingham, Gundy in the Big 12. Who you like, there's your 3 that feel like they don't want to go anywhere, right?
Yeah,
like those are the 3 guys that don't want to go anywhere. And you could talk about Campbell, but again, I think Campbell's younger, so it's harder to put him in that spot. So like those are 3 guys who I think will keep the Big 12 relevant. And I'm not saying they're going to become irrelevant, but what I'm saying is like to the naked eye or to the untrained eye or whatever you want to call the casual eye, like they're not going to look at the Big 12, but they recognize these names and that'll keep them tuned in.
That's what you need, I think, in the new Big 12. You got to make it interesting. You need coaches to stick around and you need big names. And the longer a coach stays and has success, the more people are going to be familiar. Look how much people know about Mike Gundy. You know, I think Leipold wants to produce something like that. On the other side, I know we didn't put this in the notes or whatever, but this just happened like an hour ago, and Neil Brown got an extension at West Virginia as well, which is
that's
shocking.
That's a flip.
Shocking.
I tell you what, that guy was on every hot seat list, including ours, last 3 years, and then all of a sudden, extendo.
Hey, let's not forget, we have a fan in here, myself, of a team who extended a guy who was expected to be fired. Everybody wanted to be fired, and then he ended up being fired. So an extension's not end all.
That's what I wanted to say. Okay, isn't that what college football is all about anymore? Like, we can't hold on to guys for more than 4 years if they have 4 straight losing seasons. But like the minute you get an 8-win season that you didn't expect, now you're just going to go and extend him for, I think it was 4 years. That's crazy.
What is his number on that? Did you see?
I didn't get a look. I
wonder if they cut his buyout down real hard.
Well, and this is a team who's projected to only win 6.5 games again. So it's not like he's Lance Leipold where the expectation is higher. They're higher in odds to win the Big 12. Like, this team is tied.
If I'm West Virginia, I want to be winning the Big 12. If I'm West Virginia and I've seen my history and what we've done in certain conferences and even in the Big 12, there is no reason we are not sitting top 5, top 4 in that conference every year.
But
that's how I am as a fan.
I think, is keeping Neil Brown going to do that? I think he can get 6 wins. I don't think so. I don't.
He did it last year on a tougher schedule, presumably.
Yeah, but the previous 2 years, I mean, the trajectory was just, I don't know.
Yeah, they were
replicated again.
In 22, they were not good. Like, that was a bad football team.
They play like kind of a smash mouth style of football too. Like, they're kind of conservative. They're going to keep games low scoring. Like, Garrett Green's not going to outshoot anybody at the quarterback position. So who's to say they're not going to lose these coin flip games this year and they only win 5 games? Yeah, they could be.
Everybody does that. It comes back around.
It does. All right, let's jump to what everybody kind of wants to talk about, it seems, right now, especially with the news that dropped last night, which we'll get into. But EA Sports announces today yesterday, that is, 10,000 athletes plus have joined the game, which is good news. That includes Travis Hunter. I've seen some big names, Jackson Dart, names Isaiah Bond, all these big name players joining in the game, taking the $600 and running.
Mhm.
It's great news for the sport. It's great news for the game. It's good news for the
Absolutely.
fans. And then last night, all of a sudden, here comes
This is a
Mr. Wiener.
bombshell.
Just the wienerest move you can make if you're Arch Manning. He rolls out and says, you know what? I'm not going to be in your video game. I don't want to be ranked to 74 overall as a backup quarterback and hurt all the other NIL money I got rolling in. I want to focus on my practice scout team reps so Quinn Ewers can carry me again, and opts out of this game. And I'm not angry about it. If you couldn't tell, I'm not angry about it. It just doesn't make sense to me because you're only making people hate you or giving them a reason to hate you. And I'd love to know what was said behind the scenes. Obviously, he has so much influence from the top and his uncles and his dad, but this is a terrible move. JP, what did you take on it?
I thought it was kind of interesting too. Like, I just think the excuse was kind of BS. Like, I want to focus on football. Like, your name and your likeness. I assume you have like a face scan or something, or they just work off your photo off the website. But it ain't, unless they like came up to this kid and like said they wanted him way more entwined with the game in like certain ways. And then he said that and they didn't release that, obviously, because he denied it. Then I kind of get it. But at the same time, like, I really do doubt that they were coming up to him and saying like, we need you to be at launch parties, we need you to be at here, like, you know what I mean? But I could believe it too, just because of name recognition. But my whole thing with this is like, if you took, like, right now, for example, JJ Cole at Iowa State, okay, big name within, obviously not the name Arch Manning is, but let's just go with it, right? Big name within Iowa. He stayed in the state of Iowa. He went to Iowa State. He's now the backup quarterback at Iowa State. People think he's awesome. He thinks they're going to be good after maybe Beck's time's over. If he said, I'm not going to be in the game, would anybody really blink at it? No.
Well, how many?
This kid's last name is Manning. And so it's like, dude, Arch Manning's not going to get in the game? I mean, what am I going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play with a 95 overall Quinn Ewers who slings it around the yard, and I'm not even going to blink at Arch Manning not even on it. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, but kind of disagree in the fact that this is a massive brand and it's a simulation team where if you're playing a dynasty and you're not Texas, you're probably going to run into Texas in a 12-team playoff where you wouldn't run into Iowa State as often. Sorry, Jake, not saying bad things, but I mean, this is a massive brand and you're talking about 1 year, Ewers is gone, and then you're going to be playing with quarterback number 97. And I think people have good reason to be pissed.
Who's to say he's not like his name, his number, his likeness, that's not going to be in it. But what if it's still a 73 overall, 75 overall backup? You can't tell me that's not what they would have given him. Nothing changes. The only difference is his name is Jimmy Johnson. Then instead of
we can
Arch Manning.
debate this. We can debate this. And on the revamped rosters, Manning's at least an 81.
Okay,
that's what he's never going to get. I'm going to agree 81. Because I hope they put Raiola down as like an 80 or 81. So I'm going to jump on the back of Jake. I think he would be probably an 80 or 81 as well.
Okay. Nonetheless, you don't think his replacement player 4 or random player is going to be an 80 overall too?
It's a fair argument.
I don't know. Do you think he's the only one that's actually opted, or is like
it's the only big one?
People just not like making this public? Is there like public information of?
I guarantee you he's the only. I guarantee you he's the only backup quarterback that's opted out. Everybody else is taking the $600.
If I'm Deacon Hill and I'm not taking the $600, I swear to goodness. But I'm saying I don't know if it's public knowledge, Jake, but a lot of people within the that work at CBS or other places that cover this all the time, they've gotten a list, and this is the first big name that they've gotten that said they don't want to be a part of it.
Now that this has came out, they got to release the list of everybody that's not.
So we send the pitchfork and fire crowd after him.
I don't care.
Like, cheer against that guy. He's not in the video game.
I don't know. It's not I don't think it's a big deal this year.
Who would you rather have as your backup? Malik Murphy on the game or Manning?
Definitely Malik Murphy.
I think Malik Murphy is going to be kind of nasty.
Starter. Yeah.
I couldn't believe he stayed there.
Is this a long-term move? Like, it's not a big deal this year. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is going to be the 90 overall starter for Texas, but like, does he hold out for next year too? And like, does he tell EA like, you need to be paying me $10,000?
I don't think that's his move here either. I kind of thought about that too. Like, do you think it was a money thing? Like, we have no details on it.
I can't imagine his family short on cash, and that's really end all be all.
I
Well,
can't imagine those horns on the side of his helmet are short on cash they're paying
Yeah.
him either.
JP,
No.
you said it, like he wants to focus on football. How much of a distraction is this game really going to
Don't
be?
know.
Like,
That's what I
like
kind
what are
of
we talking about?
I do kind of wonder, like, maybe they were like asking him to do a lot more for it, to promote it, to be around it, within it, like come into the studio maybe one weekend and do something. Who knows? I have no idea, but it's not like this. It, to be fair, he is not far away from getting snaps this fall because Ewers has had his injury problems, right? Like, so he's not
Yeah.
that far off. It ain't like he's playing behind a guy who's never been hurt, like a Lamar Jackson. Like, he's
No.
like, yeah, I actually can bring sneakers to the game because I know for a fact nobody's tackling that guy and he's going to be fine all year. So
That's good stuff. All right, I have a couple of pieces of news additional to this. No graphic to put up for you, but I got a chance to tune into Street Talk, which is made up of Kirk Herbstreit's sons. They have a show out there. Give it a watch. It's on YouTube over on Street Talk. I just think it's at Street Talk. They got a chance to talk to Kirk today, their father, about details of this game. And basically, here's what I took away from it. I was the nerd that was in there watching as well, trying to ask questions, but I couldn't get him to ask any of the questions I was asking. So Kirk Herbstreit basically said there's going to be multiple broadcasts in the game, whether that be different voices. He said there's going to be multiple broadcasts. But the question I was trying to get them to ask consistently was who? Because all of the other names are not broadcast names. Like, you've never seen Desmond Howard in the booth. We haven't seen Jesse.
Jesse Palmer does games. Jesse Palmer does.
Buddy, The Bachelor. I'm about to watch it right
yeah, I
after.
was gonna say he does the Bachelor.
He does SEC games. Like, he's an announcer for SEC Network.
So who's in the man in the booth with him?
That
Because none of the other
question I
names,
don't know.
Reese Davis, we never heard him call a game. He's the studio update guy. So there's got to be, I'm hoping, I tweeted from our account today, I'm hoping there's like, hey, Gary Danielson, you got something to tell us that you can't tell us? Just like this tweet. And I mean, that could be the biggest news ever. There's something missing, whether it'll be Fowler and Palmer, maybe will be the second crew and it stays on ESPN. But
I think that brings up a good point. Are Nessler and or not Nessler, Fowler and Herbstreit, are they going to be primetime games? Like, in like 14, they had you're on the Saturday night primetime game. All the regular games, you're going to have Jesse Palmer and so. That's
Beth
kind of the way.
Mowens.
I think
that would make
cool.
the rebuild tough. We wouldn't hear him
That
for
would
a
be
while.
cool because you're playing for primetime games. Like, doesn't that mean a little more? Like, if you're playing on primetime and you hear Fowler's voice for the one game in a season, that'd be pretty sick.
That would be pretty cool. I like that.
Touchdown
That's a good
Vandals.
idea. Other parts of the meeting that I listened to or interview, he did ask, and Herbstreit tried to make it seem like, he doesn't know much. He doesn't ask a bunch of questions, so he can't answer about the details. However, when they did bring up if there's in-game purchases, such as points, such as uniform packs, like we saw in the past, he said couldn't really give an answer. And then he said the words ultimate team, and he really just started shaking his head no, like he's not going to answer anything you say. So I took away from it is we're going to see a college football ultimate team. I don't know how you guys think about that. I don't really care. I'm not a card guy or Madden ultimate team guy.
Well, they were in 14 was the first year they did it. But I talked to Parks about this earlier. It wasn't a mode I played a lot just because for me, like the ultimate team, the Diamond Dynasties, all that stuff was a lot more fun for professional games, and especially baseball, because that team is, I don't know. I just think it's fun for baseball. The hockey one I got more into. I've never been a Madden guy. Like, we've had that conversation. I'm more there for the dynasty. I'm there for the online dynasty. That's why I play NCAA games. Road to Glory here and there. But like ultimate team to me gets old once that takes over the time I want to spend on my dynasty, or I'm still running the same team all the time. If it's pay to play to even get good packs or good players, that drives me a little bit nuts. Like the grind, there's a grind that should be in a game, and then there should be like, you don't have to pay to play. They're like, should be a little even. And Diamond Dynasty has done a pretty good job on it on MLB The Show, but I'm not going to play it that much. I guarantee I'll play it. Can't say it'll be my favorite game mode.
But overall, good interview from those guys. Shout out to them. It's always fun to get a little bit of hype around that game, and we've been getting it consistently, so we need to keep it up. All right, let's go to a discussion we need to have. You've probably heard about the talks about the 14-team college football playoff over the last few weeks. Pate talked about it. Obviously, you have a bunch of ESPN articles, but there's a lot of behind the scenes discussion going on that could change the landscape of this game and basically question the integrity of it as we know college football today and the great we know in the past. So I'll let Jake open this up and talk to us a little bit about the 14 team discussions going on.
Yeah, first of all, tough day for the Boomers, who we just decided on who was going to win a national champion between the Cotton Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Orange Bowl back in 90s. Like, we would decide who was the best team who played in that bowl game. That's going to be our national champion. It's a tough day for them because now we're giving automatic qualifiers for 80% of the playoff in 2 or 3 years whenever we do this. So I don't know. I heard it from a bunch of different perspectives. And the one thing, is this good for all of the conferences? Like, is this good for the Big 12 to know that they have 2 for sure qualifiers? Is this good for the ACC, who may not have Florida State or Clemson in a couple of years, that they get 2 automatic qualifiers? Or is this just a power move by the SEC and the Big 10, where basically they're saying, if you don't take this deal, we're going to go on our own? There's a bunch of different ways to take this proposal, or I don't even know what they called it. Like, somebody said it's like a social exam, a social question. Like, they're asking the public.
They
and
socialize it. Yeah.
Yeah. They want to get a public answer before they move forward.
I feel like there's a lot of better things we could have used the public to give us answers for that we've messed up in the past if we're college football executives. But a lot of it, I think, has more to do with the Big Ten and the SEC flexing their muscles, like you were saying, Jake. Like, we want 3 guaranteed. We know for a fact, like, if we're being honest here, that you're going to get 3 anyway. But a lot of it is, let's guarantee the 3. So the 2 that play for the conference title, your third best team. And if you lock in 3, I think that gives you a really good shot at getting 3 at-large spots, getting at least 1 more of those.
Yep.
Right? So theoretically, we're talking 1 at-large, because the SEC is going to take that out of the 1-4 piece, right? Your 2 ACC teams played for a title, 2 Big 12 teams that played for a title, your group of 5. And the Notre Dame thing, I just can't get past. I think
they're just separating. They're a separate entity, man.
We need to be done with the independent thing. I get it. It's great that you want to hold on to your history and what you've been forever and how this, but you're just making it harder on everybody else.
I think that's what they want to do, Jordan. I think that's what they enjoy.
Great. That's great. Let's win football games at a big level before we try to pound our chest. All right. 3 horsemen ain't coming around. People are no longer loading muskets since they've been good at football. So, like, it's just a little interesting to me that they just get babied because their name's Notre Dame.
I will say this. If we do move forward with this in a few years from now, I'm accepting of change. Like, I'm not the old guy who tries to hold on to the past, but this is a tough day for, like, the 2007 college football fan in me, because you're getting, if I can count here, you're getting 3, 5, 8, 11 spots automatically, like, of just a certain conference. It doesn't even matter what conference might be better that year. Like, hey, SEC and the Big Ten, we know you guys are probably going to have 60 or 70% of the top 10 teams the majority of the year. But there might be that one year, man, like 2007. One can be a little optimistic about it, but guess what? We're not going to get 4 Big 12 teams in, more than likely, because they're guaranteed their 2. And guess who's going to get the at-large spots the majority of the time? An extra Big 10 team, an extra SEC team, group of 5. What if there's, I'm not a huge group of 5 advocate, but what if one weird year, weird year, we get 2 pretty solid group of 5 teams, and there's no chance of them getting into a 14-team playoff because they're just not going to get that benefit of the doubt. There's just a lot of different scenarios that will pretty much make every single year the same. I'm just disappointed with this because I think if we move forward with this, we're just guaranteeing a basic format every single year, and that's not what college football is or ever has been. It's been about the Saturdays in the fall. Unfortunately, I think this does diminish the Saturdays in the fall because
absolutely it does.
There's teams playing in the Big 12 where, the 4th best team in the Big 12 is like, we have no chance in this 14-team playoff that we thought we had a couple of years ago because we're guaranteeing 4 SEC teams a year. So yeah, I don't know. I really hope that this is just some sort of pull the trigger move and we don't actually do this.
What I'm worried about on the back end, and this is pretty dramatic, but what I will say is like how many times, like how long from now are teams just going to be mailing in the check and not investing in the football program? Like at what point are some of these schools going to be like, hey, they're not going to kick us out. We're not going anywhere. We don't need to put more money into it. We're cashing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in checks right now. We don't have to worry about anything because we know even if we put all our money in 1 year, we're going to lose more money than we get because we're not going to crack this playoff. And when you make more of something, it diminishes value. That's simply a fact. That's how it works. That's why you can't just print money on a given day and fix debt. Like Saturdays are losing their give when you continually ride. Like if you think they talk about a 14 playoff too early, wait till there's 14 of them motherfucking spots. Like they won't shut up about it. Like it's just going to be shoved down your throat. Like, no, I still want to go to Iowa City on Saturday and watch Iowa play Kent State or play Northwestern or something like that. And that game still matter. Like to me, it's going to, but to a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, it's just Northwestern. I'll actually be there in a couple of weeks when Michigan comes to town. No, like you're losing it. And then if they do this, like how much of it really, like, are you really going to get a different champion? It's just a money grab to throw name brands in an area. Like we've said this upon the expansion. The expansion was not a bad idea. We were against it for a long time because people wanted it for the wrong reasons, thinking you're going to get a ton of parity in college football. I'm sorry, but you're not going to get a random, let's say that's just with a 12-team playoff. You're not going to get a 10, 11, 12, 9, like running
with the
through
buys.
people all of a sudden.
Especially now with the buys.
Especially when your 7 seed or your 8 seed is just an SEC loss or SEC team with 2 losses, one of them to the SEC champion and maybe one to maybe it's Florida and they lost to Georgia to win or to not go to the SEC title. They lost their game to Florida State and they're both ranked in top 15. You're like, oh, well, but they're the 8 seed. They can't be that good. No, they are. That's not a fluke. That is just them being better. And the number lies. The number freaking lies.
Think about this too, Jordan. Oh, guys, go back to the Alabama-Texas game this year. Think about that game being played and the circumstances and the results that happened in that game in this 14-team playoff. How much less does that game matter from last year? That we thought Alabama was done the entire time. Mm-hmm. Every game mattered. There was so much pressure every single Saturday on Alabama to win and to run the table, and they did. But
I think Georgia this year is a perfect example of what's going to happen with 12 and 14 teams. They're going to play for a national title and they will not be an SEC champ and they'll have 1 or 2 losses. And you'd be like,
yep.
Oh shit, where did they come from? I'm tired of Georgia beating it every year. Well, you let them in because you complained and whined when there wasn't a problem.
It doesn't matter what everybody says. Like we have the argument all the time. College football is more valued to us than the NFL is. We can get our fandom into it. The tradition, the pageantry, everything around the game is what makes it amazing and better than the NFL. We are taking substantial steps towards this being a more NFL look. Talking about leaving the NCAA. I mean, this contract for the college football playoff ends at 2025, people. We could see these moves incredibly soon, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, look, you want to talk about being the NFL. If you're giving at least 2 automatic bids to each conference or division like the NFL, that's exactly what they do. You win the NFC East.
Yeah, those are pros.
7 and 9, you know?
They're taking away what we value about the game. You can go ahead and pull that question up. It's a great question. I hope so. With how bad, excuse my French, but how bad they're getting fucked in this deal and how devalued the group of 5 is, I hope they do because they deserve it. The programs, I mean, you just talked about it, JP, how it still matters for Toledo to go play Iowa and Iowa City. Not only is it good for the sport, and that's what it is, it's good for that program. It gives them a chance
them alive,
to compete.
Man.
We're talking about $1 million checks being cut to go play Iowa. So what are we going to do when those games don't matter? Nobody tunes in. They're not on TV. Like, are those checks going to diminish? Are these schools going to diminish? Are they going to be able to leave the NCAA with anybody? No, it'll become its own brand and version of football. So to answer your question, Ben, I hope.
I'm just thinking about this right now. This is going off the top of my head. We're talking about these MAC programs, right? who do you think's more compelling to, like, let's say the American? They're not power, they're the high end of the group of 5, right? Who's more compelling to the American Conference right now? South Dakota State or Miami of Ohio?
South Dakota State.
Exactly. So what is the point? They have to cash a check. That's why they play these games. It keeps their program running, right? But what is the point to put yourself through this shit? Like, the MAC will not get a bid. There could be a 12-0 MAC team, but if there's an 11-1 Sun Belt and an 11-1 American Conference team, you can guarantee it that MAC team will not be the one in the playoff. So you're kind of just telling them to go away, right? Like, so yeah, the bowl games draw. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the bowl games draw really well when the MAC teams play and the Conference USA teams play and the American teams play and the Sun Belt, right? They draw well. So put a trophy at the end of this 12-team playoff for some groups, the group of 5. I bet it draws just as well, if not better. The FCS playoffs do well, and that's a step below, right? And theoretically, this would become a step below I don't know what, let's just call like the main playoff. I don't know what you would call it because you have FCS, like it's that middle ground, right? Like it would, I think it'd draw really well, and it would probably be the better move for those programs.
Yeah, we could probably roll on this one all night. I mean, there's so many different possibilities that could come out of this. I think one example, if you want to just put one out there that I'm thinking of in my head, think of 2020. You have a BYU team who's not a part of the Big 12 yet and a coastal team that's elite. Like, that's what this model should be built for. It should be built for, okay, we have these 2 really good group of 5 teams. We need to see if they can compete before they make it to the national championship or 4-team playoff and get blown out. That's what my point of view on a 12-team playoff should give me a chance. Give those teams a chance. Instead, we're just wiping them out and cashing checks. So maybe the NCAA can fight back, maybe not, but I'm sure we'll expand on that later.
Fighting somebody? Come on.
Yeah, they don't do that very often. It's not like they have anything better to do. But all right, let's go to the point of tonight's episode. We have 6 college football what ifs, 2 from each person. We'll start off with Jake. Jake will be up first, leading off with college football what ifs. Jake, let me ask you this, Jake. What if Cam Newton never got kicked out of Florida?
Yeah, what if that happened? Would we still regard Tim Tebow as legendary of a college football star as we think he is? So Tim Tebow, for those who don't know, Cam Newton got, kicked out of Florida for, what was it, stealing a laptop?
Yeah.
I mean, it's on every 30 for 30 that you can go watch and find. But what I really didn't understand until I've listened to some other things is that, like, apparently Tebow wasn't as highly regarded as Cam Newton. Like, Cam Newton, if anybody's watched him, he's one of the most prolific athletes to ever play the quarterback position. And I think a lot of people thought Cam Newton was better than Tebow, possibly even as a freshman, but you're not putting a freshman in that situation with the number 1 team in the country. There were people saying that, does Newton, like, do they see the writing on the wall? Does Tebow see the writing on the wall and he tries to enter the NFL draft early? There's another thing is, does Urban Meyer extend his career at Florida? He left in 2010. That was exactly at the time when Cam Newton won at Auburn. Does Cam Newton go down as a multinational champion and doesn't have to stay 1 year in bumfuck Texas playing
Blinn College?
Blinn College. Sorry for any of you Blinn College graduates out there. Yeah, I think it would have changed the perception of Tim Tebow's career at Florida. And I think it would have changed the perception of Cam Newton. We already think Cam Newton is one of the greatest college football quarterbacks we've ever seen. And he played 1 year. 1 year. Imagine if the guy would have gotten 2, maybe even 3. And I think of it as Iowa State related. Does Gene Chizik just get absolutely axed after his second year at Auburn? Because there's no way he's winning 4 games without Cam Newton. So does he even take the Auburn job? That's another question. So it goes and affects other people outside of just the Florida program. And how long does Florida maintain its success into 2015? I don't know. Does this build into more recruiting for Urban? Does he still want to stick around? So,
yeah, I think a lot of this for me is like, I don't think maybe Florida just was not the cultural fit for him. And it kind of obviously it played out that way. But how much different is that Florida team with him at the helm than Tebow? Like, he's not that much better of a passer. He's probably a better runner because there's not really a
Whoa.
better like.
Hot
I
take. I think
I
he's
think
a
Cam
much
Newton's
better
That might be a
passer.
little hot. That
You're
has a
watching
little
Cam
heat
Newton.
to it.
Have you ever watched
Cam
Tim
Newton.
Tebow throw a ball? JP, don't be Bronco bias here, man. Keep
I said
Denver.
Cam Newton threw the ball
I-
better.
You said how does Cam Newton throw a much better ball than Tim Tebow? I
Said
think
how
he throws
much better of a ball? Like
A lot better.
Okay, either way, I said the right thing. But he is a better runner because we haven't seen a runner like that at the quarterback position. Like the guy's just a different animal. Is Florida? It's hard for me to say that Florida's that much different though, because there was so much talent there already. Maybe he's not the star as much.
But I'm not even just talking like 2008, 2009. Like, does it maintain the success? Does it prolong the success at Florida? You know what I mean? After it just kind of went downhill after Urban left.
Well,
he had.
Do you think he
health
really
issues, but-
doesn't have health issues if Cam Newton's his quarterback? Like it just doesn't.
Well,
He's
it
like,
didn't
"Actually,
stop
I'm
him from
good."
He got back into it at Ohio State.
Yeah.
When he saw a much better situation. I think he saw the writing on the wall of Florida, and he's like,
Oh,
I also
so he
need to
played
get
the
outta
health
here.
card, is what you're saying. He played the health card.
I
Gave
think
the
the
full-
maybe.
the most fun part about this one is to look at what Auburn would have been without him, because
Yeah.
I mean that's Auburn's prime time within the last however long. I mean,
Well, they
I
had
can't
that
even remember.
They
Malzahn
played for
year.
a national title in 14.
Yeah, I'll say they had that Malzahn year in 2014. But
Yeah, that was Nick Marshall.
yep.
yeah, but do they
Yeah.
get those athletes recruited there if Cam Newton never appeared at Auburn? Like, what if they never had that stint beforehand to get the athletes that then had the year in 14? I mean, there's
I
so
think
many
you're
things
still-
that lead to a
Yeah.
successful program maintaining success that
Agreed.
it would change a lot. I mean, look at Florida. Look where they're at now. I mean, both of these teams, honestly, where they're at. now.
Auburn's on the up and up a little
I
bit.
think the
I
entire
agree. I agree.
the entire decade of 2010 to 2019 would have looked different for Auburn. And I
Oh, yeah.
think we even like young guys like us still have recency bias of what we think Auburn can be as a program. Like it's not just their success from the 80s or 90s. Like, no, this was a good team even just a couple of years ago. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. If
They
he-
weren't a
if he
bad
was-
team when Bo Nix was there.
No, exactly. So
Yeah.
but that could,
Yeah, we saw that
it could
firsthand.
trickle
in person.
effect.
Yeah, he did light the world on fire that day in
He,
Fayetteville.
did, he was a very good quarterback that day. All right, let's go to JP. You have our next one. JP, what if Iowa won the Big Ten championship in 2015? What if?
You guys told me to go a little more homerish, so I think I gave a Nebraska one, and Iowa one, and an Iowa State one. What if Iowa had won the Big Ten title in 15 though? This is still East and West, right? So there's your one West champion, right? They go to a college football playoff. They probably get pummeled the same way Michigan State did against that Alabama team, right?
Okay.
I'm
Glad
not
you
going to
said
act
that.
like
I was thinking
no.
like you were going to say
I do.
like
I do
somebody
think
else runs for
they-
700
It's not
yards?
the world.
No, I do think they were a better team than Michigan State, but I'm not saying that they're not going to lose by 20. But I think the West is looked at much differently. I think this last so that's probably like 6 years of Iowa football is also looked at differently. I think you look at a Big Ten champion Iowa team with a bad offense. Like, I don't think they come up as often. Maybe all that did was hurt them. Right? Like you weren't as exposed to the level you need to be at on the offensive side of the ball. This was a good offensive team, by the way. This is CJ Beathard, Tavon Smith. Like, this was a good offensive team. But I think it's seen a little more so that needs to be a focal point if they win that game, go to a playoff, find out the hard way, right? Than the stuff we're in right now. It's also like that diffuses a lot of bullshit arguments rivals have. Like if Iowa goes to a playoff and wins a Big Ten title, like that stops a lot of things. Like if we're playing regional game, that stops a lot of anything anybody has to throw at.
So
them.
I can't.
So-
So you'd tell me to shut up if I told you we still have a New Year's Six bowl win and you guys don't in the last 10
Well,
years. Is that what you're
you would
telling
still
me?
say that even if they went to a playoff.
Here we
I
go.
know, but you would,
six bowl.
but you would say we went to the playoff. That's what you guys would say. That'd be
There's a play.
better
Yeah,
argument.
like
That's a better
it
argument.
is. But I'm saying I think it changes the outlook of the West, and I think the West is looked at differently, and maybe gets a little more muscles rather than hurting itself in the last 5 years of that division.
And
I think
JP,
that-
it also
West versus
erases a lot of the I don't want to say lingering again, but lingering thoughts from other fans about how weak that Iowa schedule was that year, because that's
Yeah.
what everybody said during the season.
Who
And
gives
then
a
they get
shit? They won
exposed
the
in the
game.
bowl game. But like if they
Yeah.
win this game, that argument goes out the window too. So
Yeah,
that
you just all you are is another team that you went to the playoff and got shellacked. And you know what would
Yep.
happen? Nothing, because it wouldn't stand out any, because everybody got shellacked in the 14 playoff, other than the last 2 years.
true.
It's a fact.
That's fair. That is a
Pandemonium.
fact.
Look
All
it
right.
up.
Jump to mine. Mine's a little bit more recruiting based. Jake, I'm going to go to you on this one as well, a little bit. But what if Johnny Manziel never decommitted from Oregon? If you look at Johnny Manziel's list of schools that he picked from, Texas A&M was the only one he took an official visit to. Obviously, he goes there, has an unbelievable college career, maybe one of the best highlight films we've ever seen, wins the Heisman Trophy. Basically keeps Kevin Sumlin around for probably longer than he would have been. Cliff Kingsbury at offensive coordinator, so he had all the tools. But what if he doesn't leave? What if he goes to Eugene and plays at Oregon? How about the career difference? How about does he ever have problems? Does he develop a drinking problem in college?
I could tell you, I hate him a lot more.
If he goes to Oregon?
Yeah. Then I'd have to watch all the 12 and 13-year-olds and all these kids running around with Oregon gear and Manziel gear. Come on, that sounds
I'll
like
tell you
hell on
what,
earth.
looking back on his career and all that he did, I don't want to say accomplished because I don't even talk about his accomplishments, but off field, he fits at Oregon. Like he's just that.
I think
he kind of fits.
You said does he like not get in trouble and all that stuff? I just don't. He just had that
Dude,
personality to
think
where
about-
he would have gotten himself into trouble wherever he was at with that success.
Oh,
Dude, I don't know if he would have had the leeway though, because think about what are they called? The documentaries on Netflix, Untold. The Untold that came out, they talked to Kingsbury. He's like, "Oh yeah, I would know what was going on. I just told him you better fucking play well today." And it's, dude, does he have that at Oregon? Is there really other coaches out there that's like Cliff Kingsbury? I wouldn't say so. I think he's kind of each his own. Just go out there and ball and do whatever you want. But dude, if he has different mentorship, different coaches, I don't know if his life gets out of control the way it was,
I bet
or
it
if
does.
he.
He's a lot closer to
so?
Vegas.
What about all that oil money that he
he's
picked
good.
up? What about all that oil money that he picked up too?
You ever heard of
That ain't
Nike?
up there in
You don't
Eugene.
think? Yeah, I was gonna say
That's-
you don't.
I don't know if Phil Knight's. I don't know if
You
Phil
don't think
Knight's.
Phil
You're
Knight
telling
would
me,
be
$1,000
you're
deals?
telling me Phil Knight's not throwing him a couple grand every once in a while, like sending a lady to his room on a random Wednesday night? Come on, that old
I
guy
think
would
the
have done
ladies
it.
would be
He'd have
there
done
anyway.
it.
The Heisman Trophy. Jake, I'll go to you on this. One of those schools listed was Iowa State. What if he goes to Iowa State? How different is that your program now to have a Heisman Trophy winner? And think about what he could have done to teams in the Big 12.
You think he
Yeah,
wins
just-
a Heisman
just-
Trophy at Iowa State?
Dude, I don't
Yeah,
know how he wouldn't.
Nah,
No.
Times his
no.
stats by 2.
He
he
would have
had
gotten
no
destroyed
talent
as a
around
little
him.
Yeah, he would have gotten destroyed as a little body. But add that to the list of
Oh,
Heisman Trophy winners that were second fiddle to Iowa State, a la Barry Sanders. It was down to Oklahoma State and Iowa State, and Mr. Joe Burrow. It was down to Ohio
no.
State.
You don't get to claim Joe Burrow. That's a Nebraska thing, man.
Where was he
That's a
born?
Nebraska
Where was he
thing.
born? Was he born in Ames?
He doesn't
Oh yeah,
give
that's
a
right.
shit. There's
He
a
was born
direct
in
quote
Ames.
there. There's a direct quote out
Oh,
there. I
okay.
wanted to go to Nebraska. They never called. That's what he said. That's a Nebraska claim.
He wanted to go there, but they didn't call. But Iowa State actually called and offered him,
And
so that
so
was
he
a
didn't
real
wanna go there.
possibility.
But he didn't want to go there. He picked the other school. Nebraska never called. Joe Burrow would have been a Husker. He should have been. But we have a lot of those. But fair enough, Jake. Fair enough. All right, that was a fun one. I
Joe
think there's
Burrow's
so
not
many
Joe Burrow if he
differences.
goes to Nebraska either. If we're playing that game,
Probably not. I mean, he's not throwing to Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase,
exactly.
so I think
He's not
that's
throwing to
exactly-
anybody like that.
Yeah.
Like he could have gone anywhere else in the country. He's not the same guy because, I mean, just the circumstances of his story. And
He would have
what
had
was-
Stanley Morgan Jr., and that is no
that's what
way
I'm
to
saying.
compare to Justin Jefferson, but he was pretty good. But fair enough. All right, going to the next one. Jake, what if Jim Harbaugh took the job at Iowa State?
That's great.
What it-
That's great photoshopping skills.
Yeah,
by
it is.
you,
Look
by
at
the
the
way. I
Jack Stripe.
love the Jack Trice logo
Yeah.
on Jim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, get that guy. Get that guy in Ames. Yeah, I wanted to do one Iowa State related. This one's not as serious. Basically, when Harbaugh took his first coaching gig at San Diego in 2007, obviously he was looking to take the jump to FBS football, and he was in the interview room. There were 2 other names, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but obviously Gene Chizik gets the job at Iowa State in 2007. Harbaugh was one, and there was another guy that's obviously a well-known name, but I've done terrible research and I can't provide that for you guys. But had they not offered Chizik the job and they offer Harbaugh, how does that look? Harbaugh took over Stanford in 2007, who was a bad football team, and it still applies today. It's really hard to recruit there, but he found ways to succeed. He built Stanford into a national championship contender in his last season at 2010. He definitely, had he been at Iowa State, he was looking to take that next jump. He has been his whole career. So one question is, how long does he stay? The second question is how high could he have built the pinnacle at Iowa State? If he could win 12 games at Stanford, could he have at least won 10 games in the old Big 12? This was back when they were both divisions. Iowa State went 2-10 Chizik's year and lost every single Big 12 game.
It's a damn good Iowa State program, baby. Here we go.
Yeah, this is back in the prime. This is the prime of Iowa State days.
There's 35 people in Jack Trice that day.
But on top of that, Chizik recruited decently well after he left after his 2 years. That was really the success on why Paul Rhodes was able to win 6 or 7 games when he first stepped in 2009 and 2010. So if Chizik could recruit at Iowa State at a decent level, imagine what Harbaugh would have done had he had enough success to where Paul Rhodes doesn't get the job, but somebody else does. Does that change the trajectory of Matt Campbell coming to town? So on and so forth. You play the game.
I think, JP, you can maybe back me up on this, but maybe all this GOAT talk is because he thinks that Jim Harbaugh should have ended up at Iowa State. All this Jim Harbaugh could be the greatest coach of all time.
He's claiming him.
That is homerism that I didn't know.
That is an off-season topic, and I still haven't gotten over that. I'm ready to go to bat for Jimbo.
All right, we might have to do that, but all right, let's go to the next one. We're already almost at the hour mark. Thanks for staying around. Let's go to JP. What if the Big Ten never left the legends versus leaders look? This is a good one because this would change everything.
It does change a lot. Like, you probably don't have the bitchiness of the Big Ten East and the Big Ten West, right? Like, you have Michigan. You have Michigan State on that side. Michigan State plays for a conference title in this format a couple years ago, right? Michigan plays Ohio State for a conference title the last couple years. Does Northwestern ever... Technically, does Iowa or Northwestern really have that many shots at it? Like, you've seen Iowa's years where they've gone. There's probably 2 of those years that, or one for sure that they go, one maybe, and one for sure no, they do not go. Northwestern, they never get there. Purdue, never an appearance. Wisconsin, maybe you have to beat Ohio State to get there. Yeah, probably not. You have to beat Penn State and Ohio State to get there. Like, do you think the Big Ten's looked at as a better conference just because their conference title games look a little bit different?
I mean, you still would have the top heaviness of Michigan and Ohio State, but like, think of all the
2 heavyweights in each side. Yeah. You have your very clear 3 and 4, and then the rest.
How fast do they try to dismiss it because Michigan and Ohio State are playing in the Big Ten title?
I mean, it was a different college football. Yeah, it was a different college football.
We can't do this. We got to disband it. We're sick of seeing these 2 teams play back-to-back weeks. That's another thing. But I think this is a great example.
I think this is, like, you could do this however you wanted to. Obviously, there's a little geography into it, not a ton, but it looks interesting. Like, Rutgers, Maryland come in, you split those 2.
Yep, and it still wouldn't change anything.
The same one. Yeah, like, that's the only reason they probably changed, other than like the names were fucking awful.
Still makes more sense than the modern day Big 12. Geography wise, as a conference,
it does, but. I don't know. I kind of think that a lot of the slack that the Big Ten has gotten in the Big Ten West, that tells these Big Ten West teams that they can't fall into this brand of football the last 3 or 4 years that they have, where they just suck and they just want to win the division. That's all that matters. Like, that's gone now. You have to beat the big boys right now. And I think the Big Ten West keeps out of a funk. I think Nebraska stays out of a funk that they were in. I think Michigan State stays out of the big one with D'Antoni that they were in. I don't think Iowa runs into the same issues that they've been running into. I think Northwestern doesn't have the success. Purdue doesn't have the success. I just think it looks a lot different. I think it's a conference that you'd look at now with them and being the Big Ten and the SEC being the 2 big boys. Maybe they're flexing their muscles a little bigger than the SEC. I'm just saying, who knows.
Dude, think about the play style differences of the split. Like, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, ground and pound football. And then look at the East, who's had all the success. Everybody thinks they're so much better. And it's more air-based teams, Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana, even Purdue. I guess Purdue could fall in the West too and be more of a run-heavy team. But the West is all running. I mean, we're talking about Brett Bielema, Kirk Ferentz, now Matt Rule, who's the same way, PJ Fleck, who hands the ball off 30 times a game. I mean, this is completely different. It changes the entire landscape of the conference to even move one or two teams and create a better conference championship game with more hype. Think about what it would do with a 14-team playoff. This is a great one. This is when I was making this, honestly, looking at the legends and leaders, I was like, holy crap. I don't even remember what the conference was like, but imagine it now at the top heaviness.
I started a new dynasty on NCAA 13 like a while ago, and I just kept the legends and leaders. Usually I change it to East-West and do the whole thing. I was just like, let's leave it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's a good idea. But all right, go to the last one, and it's mine. Another recruiting one. Jake, I had to throw one at myself too. There's 5 teams listed that Lamar Jackson was interested in. Nebraska's on that list. And one thing that stood out to me, one, look at that picture of Lamar Jackson in a UCF jersey. It's hilarious. But imagine what he would have done at that program with that offense and what they've been recently. But look at the 4 teams outside of Louisville that he's at. If that doesn't tell you what a meaningful player at a school does for it and moving forward, what will? I mean, you have a struggling Miami, middle of the pack, going to be better now, UCF team, struggling Nebraska, and a new coach, struggling Mississippi State, and then Louisville, who plays in the ACC title this year. So if Lamar Jackson goes to any of these 4 schools, you have to think they're in a better spot than they are now.
Yeah.
I mean, also a Heisman Trophy winner. Another one. This is another
He
scenario.
should have won 2. I'll go to my grave saying that. Should have won 2.
Should have. I think they just wanted to avoid his speech after.
They got tired of his name. They're like, he's doing it again with better numbers. He won last year. Give it to somebody else.
Oh,
and it's another huge recruiting piece, especially for these 4 schools. Maybe not Miami and Nebraska. They recruit pretty easily, but UCF and Mississippi State, we have an NFL MVP winner. That's what we're talking about. So think of him in any of these 4 spots. It's intriguing and crazy. And it's another quarterback that Nebraska's name's listed on that could have, I don't know, changed the face, but hopefully we got ours now. But that's a fun one. Jake.
Yeah, something relevant that we can move off of your Lamar and Johnny Manziel. What if the Heisman committee gives Reggie Bush his Heisman back? Also pretty relevant in college football news.
I think Paul's restored to the world and everybody's happy again.
How about Johnny Manziel? I mean, Johnny Manziel, he's boycotting the Heisman. He's not showing up.
Johnny Manziel's not showing up. What are we going to do?
I was going to say, does that really move?
You're a Manziel hater, JP.
I'm not. I just I think he's incredible. He's incredible for what he did for the sport of college football during that time. I think Lamar's better. I thought Kyler Murray was I'm just saying, I thought there were much better quarterbacks in the recent years than Manziel.
You're like, what does Manziel do? Come on, guys, we're leaving. And Barry Sanders and Andre Ware are like, who the fuck is this kid?
Who's the kid with the crazy haircut, tattoos, and cracked out?
Yeah, you should have used a little bit more slurred speech of him saying, come on, guys. But he does have an all-time quote, too. I don't have a drinking problem. They have a problem with me drinking. I mean, come on. That's classic Johnny Manziel. He's the king. He's the king. And all-time.
I say that in the mirror before I go out on Saturdays.
That's a good move. All right. That was fun. There's a lot of college football what ifs out there. A few good ones that we didn't go into, but I wanted to mention is like, what if JT Barrett doesn't get the first down in the game in 2017?
That
the one where he got turned.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He didn't. But what if that? Where do those programs go? Does Michigan start then?
Will they ever go for a national title?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Jabril Peppers, who probably deserved to play for a national title.
Yeah, agreed.
But there's a lot of crazy ones out there. It's been fun. Good episode. We had a lot to go over in recent news, and then the 14-team playoff. We'll expand on that throughout the rest of these off-season episodes. I believe there's a lot of first-time viewers in here. Shout out for sticking around. There's a lot of you. We appreciate you. You're in the spot to be college football-wise. JP, anything to take us away?
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on where you're watching us, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or X, or formerly known as Twitter, give us a follow, give us a like. Go to YouTube. That's where we put pretty much everything. Twitter is great for us to make sure you guys are updated on when everything's going on and whatnot. But YouTube is where all our content basically resides. We're also on Instagram and TikTok. We're daily stuff on TikTok. YouTube's great for getting our stuff out throughout the week. You can see the full clips. TikTok's incredible to watch. Just tidbits and other hype videos that Jake puts together. So make sure
Hit
to
us
follow
up.
us on all the things.
Yes,
and we
hit us
want
up.
to make sure we're live on TikTok at some point too. We're chasing
We
that
are a
goal.
long ways to go.
We are a
We
long,
long
ways
to go on live.
Hey,
on
we're on the
TikTok.
road. On
That
the
would be a
road
game
to
changer.
1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yes.
We're on the road
Just
to it.
crossed over the 100 mark.
Yep.
But still growing. Follow us on all platforms at Play the Fight Pod, except for TikTok at Play the Fight Song. Shout out Jake for the branding error
Find
there.
us.
But it was fun. Jake, take us away.
Welcome back for those who are new. Play